Right. Just 4 seconds is right. None of them. Yes, and then nobody answers anything to my meetings. Or no. I don't know what his name is. I went to the bill center. I must be what it must be. Yeah. Yeah, I do, young man. No, you know, we went to this first game last night because we thought Randall could do something. Well, guess what? But you're behind here. Before the game, most teams, they were following as soon as the ball was. You open up today, you can go up. No, that's. I'm invited, I will. They put electricity on the TV. You don't think everybody. See, I think $800. You know, next week I'm see.
Okay, it's 5:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, Sharon Joseph, David Bullion, Jessica Middle, Michael McCray, Mike Pennick, Richard Laughlin, Barry Kaiser, Joe Salinas. Here. Okay, the Historic Review Board is an advisory board appointed by the City Council. I am Larry Jackson, co-chair of the Historic Review Board. It is my function of the board to consider all applications for certificates of appropriateness for properties in the historic district and for landmarks. In considering whether to approve or disapprove of an application for certificate of appropriateness, the Historic Review Board shall be guided by City of Fredericksburg design guidelines and standards and the Historic Preservation Ordinance. If anyone present wishes to speak in favor or in opposition to an item on today's agenda, you will have had to sign up by 5 o'clock. And I don't know if we have any of those to be heard on the sheet that's out front. It is not necessary to sign up to speak if you are the owner of or representative for a project on the agenda. You will be called on as the case is called. Approval by the board does not take the place of any type of permit. Permits must be obtained for all work. No work of any type is to be started without obtaining the appropriate city permits after certificate of appropriateness has been issued by the Historic Preservation Officer. Okay. Were there any comments, written comments? None?
No one signed in.
Okay. Anna?
Good evening. Got a couple things to report to you tonight. The first, this will be Mike Pennick's last HRB meeting. For those of you who don't know, Mike Pennick is one of the original Historic Review Board members. That's been since 1985. So that's 37 years of service that Mike Pennick has provided to the city of Fredericksburg free of charge. We owe him a lot. I can't imagine the amount of changes that you've seen in those 37 years. And to those of us that appreciate those things that haven't changed, we know we owe you a lot. I'm saddened that you're leaving us, but I think your legacy stands, and we've all benefited from your expertise and dedication to Fredericksburg. I think Mayor Kinney wanted to say something as well.
Hey, Mike, I know what you just did. Hey, Anna asked me this morning to come in and sign a document that we're going to present to you in a moment. It doesn't have a number on it, like $1,000 or $100,000, so that wasn't it. Mike, I've known you a long time. We have coffee occasionally there. And I can still, I think if I got this right, I think you first came back into town to work on the design for the Admiral Nimitz wave. Is that correct? Okay, so, your impact to our city has been wonderful over the many, many, many years, and I know you have contributed quite a bit to the beautification of our historic district. And, I'm just the mayor, and I'm just still Charlie Keeney, and I really do appreciate that. And I know I speak for the council as well, not only for you, Mike, for all you gentlemen and ladies who serve on this board. I know sometimes it's not easy, and I know your paycheck is pretty slim. So again, Mike, thank you, and thank you all of y'all for your service on this. Uh, Historical value of our community is surely reflective of the many, many years you've done and continuing for the board for many, many years to come, and Anna's good work as well and staff. Thank you very much, Mike. Mike, they want you up front. Now, they usually have a stool for me to stand on, so I don't look so short. Mike, congratulations on it. Now, does that mean you're gonna apply your call? Good deal. I look forward to it. You bet.
In other news, City Council approved the landmark designation of a building that's younger than Mike Pennick. 208 West, or Woodcrest was successfully designated as a landmark at the last City Council meeting. So I just want to give you guys that update because it was on your last agenda. So we have a new landmark in town.
All right, has everyone looked at the minutes? Anybody have any problem with the minutes from the last meeting? Okay. Stand approved.
There were a couple revisions.
Richard Laughlin, here. All right. Okay, certificate of appropriateness applications. On the consent agenda, these items under the consent agenda are deemed by the Historic Preservation Officer to be routine in nature and will be approved by one motion of the board adopting the staff findings and recommendation as part of the approval. The items on the consent agenda will not be discussed. Any member of the board or the public that wishes to discuss an item on the consent agenda may request that it be removed and placed on the individual consideration agenda. Anyone have anything? Have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Second, anybody? Richard says, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Okay. Application 20-016, 316 West Orchard. Is Gary Wood present?
If you're in the audience and you're here for 112 East Austin, 311 East College, 108 East College, or 505 West Main, your application has been approved and you do not need to stay for the remainder of the meeting. You're welcome to, though. And your certificate of appropriateness will be emailed this week. So application 22016 at 316 West Orchard. The applicant is requesting a C of A to build a 20-foot by 25-foot pergola with Douglas fir and roof standing seam to match existing house roof. It'll have a 10-foot tall, on the carport side, it'll be 10-foot tall, slightly sloping north, and a 6-foot horizontal fencing for privacy on the north and east side of the pergola. I've cited the lot coverage sections of the design guidelines, staff's findings, and recommendation. This is their corner lot, so the new pergola will be visible from Elm Street. All accessory structures should be 10 feet behind the main house and have at least one material and color as the main house. The pergola meets other design guidelines and standards.
Okay, if you'd like to explain your situation.
Sure. This is it is a short-term rental right now, but the owners live in Northwest Texas, and this is going to be their home. So this addition it's two-part. It is for them, but it is for some screening right now. There's some dogs across the street, which have not been a nuisance, but when they see people over there, they're going to do what dogs do. So this will kind of keep some privacy there as well. It's low impact to the property. And it does meet the guidelines, and it is in their backyard. They are planning to move here with Ralph and Kimmy and their 2 kids. So this was Kimmy's request for us to build this for her for when they come. But that picture right there is what it's going to look like. The fence on either side of that fireplace, not by the hot tub, but just on either side, that's the 6-foot fence, horizontal fence right there. So that was their inspiration for this.
Any discussion?
I will note also the fireplace is it'll be a ventless gas fireplace, so there'll be no real wood in it, no sparks of any kind like that as well.
Just one question. So
Sure.
how far from the carport and from the storage area is the pergola supposed to stand? Because there is a restriction that, as city staff mentioned, that we're supposed to be 10 foot behind the main house.
Okay.
So,
So from the carport being part of the main house, I can move it 10 foot back. That's no problem because it's right up next to the carport as drawn. But we can move that. That lot's huge. It's very deep. Yeah.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve application number 22-016 in keeping with the guidelines that city staff has mentioned and the applicant willingness to move the structure 10 foot from the main house structure.
Yes, sir.
The second. Any more questions, discussion? All in favor? Oh, go ahead.
I'll second.
Oh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those for the same? That's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Application 22-030, 206 North Orange Street. Is Mr. Summer here? Timothy?
Understand, okay. 206 North Orange, it's an R2 zone property, and it's a medium rating. The applicant is requesting approval to build a new addition on the rear and north and south sides that include an attached garage with a roof line similar to the height as the historic house. Materials to include limestone and standing seam metal roof. Item 2, remove the asbestos siding to reveal the original wood siding. Item 3, replace non-original shingle roof with standing seam metal roof. And item 4, replace non-original metal casement window with wood window to match originals and rehab existing original windows. I've cited the section of the design guidelines and standards for roofs, additions, and lot coverage. Staff's findings and recommendation. The proposed addition takes up the entire buildable area of the backyard of this small lot. Staff recommends approval with the following modifications. The use of a hyphen to reduce the amount of the original rear wall that will be removed. As proposed, the entire rear wall will be removed, and the corners of the structures will not be retained. B, the material be changed from stone so as not to compete or overpower the original wood siding and to match a color of the original. And C, the south porch facing Orange Street does not meet the setback requirements for the side additions. The detailing of the porch with this shingle roof gives the addition the appearance of being older than the original structure. A wood shingle roof would be more appropriate on the original structure. And this is in keeping with design guidelines 3.3 C, D, E, K, L, M, and N. Item 2, the removal of the asbestos siding and restoration of the wood windows are appropriate and will improve the integrity of the historic structure. Staff recommends approval. If the windows are beyond repair, specs for the new windows must be submitted. Item 3, the composition shingle roof is not original. The porch roof is currently metal. A standing seam metal roof is period appropriate for the house. Item 4, the metal casement window is not original and negatively impacts the integrity of the structure. The proposal to replace with a window to match the originals will improve the integrity of the structure, and staff recommends approval.
Okay, Stan?
You don't have any questions? It was a very small house and a very small lot. It's R2. I was on the board when we approached the owner that was in the nursing home. It had a big hole in the roof. And demolition by neglect, we got the, I think Sharon Gale was on it. I don't know who else was on the board at that time. But that building has sat there since 2000. And so the clients that purchased it are a young couple. They actually have a family next door or nearby that they wish to come and live next to them and stay in Fredericksburg. It's not intended to be an STR, even though the lot's too small anyway for multiple housing. It's a complicated design because the lot was so small. I followed the setback requirements. I'm at 37% of the side of the 55% permitted. I think the hyphen is subjective from the standpoint that it's a 2-bedroom house and they wanted a 3rd bedroom because they have 3 children. What else? The decision to put a metal roof on is appropriate for that style. The addition is still low profile. We created a small courtyard in back. The offset of the porch on the, what I call the south side, is not the visible side from the street. There'll be a fence there, but we don't know when. Probably once we get complete. The spaces within that house will be restored. The exterior will be restored. It's an interesting house that the changes on the inside has just gone through a lot of terrible deterioration. It's pretty nasty inside, in other words. I sent my son in the document. But the bottom line is, it's self-evident as to what we are presenting this evening. I think there's a lot of subjectiveness on the comments. I'm open for any questions from the board. It is a medium rated building. I know that doesn't mean anything.
Of course it does.
I said it doesn't mean anything.
The
They
medium
all
rating,
means everything in the historic, the new ordinance.
no, the medium rating does determine the level of the standard and guideline. So the medium rating does matter. And I think when you rehab it, I mean, without the addition, then it would be eligible for high if you improve the integrity as proposed.
Well, then it could become an STR, couldn't it?
The STR has nothing to do with the
Well,
rating.
it does have something to do with the garage. The owners want to stay there. They can't, park in the street. That's what makes the lot even smaller. Garage, and it's within the setback. I wasn't trying to demean the value of historic properties. I've done that too long. Questions for anybody?
Anyone with any questions? Do I have a motion? They're still thinking, Stan.
You're still confused?
They're still thinking.
Oh, okay. I took opposition to Anna's opinion about additions being stone. Um, I considered siding, but the owner wanted stone. So I did a little research and, there are 3 to 4 high-rated buildings in town that are wood frame. And stone additions, one in particular, I've spent 25 years. So, those are just things that when you find an evaluation of historic building, the additions, even all the historic buildings that have historic additions, don't always have, they're not hyper offset. You find an offset. I think the state attorney said.
Yeah, my only comment to the board is, I think the design standards and guidelines call for a differentiating material. And I think stone is a differentiating material. The back wall issue, I'm a corner man, as y'all know. I push pretty hard for amendments for any kind of addition to be inset from the corners. But our design guidelines and standards talk about also going the other direction. It's a way of distinguishing the historic structure from the addition.
You can see by that plan that's illustrated now, you can offset, but how much do you offset? Is it 1 foot? Is it 6 inches? I know a couple of you contractors have done additions where you just change the materials, but that was before the recent ordinance. But the property is so small. And should the owners not do anything to it at all? Should they just leave it as a 2-bedroom house? And when you look, I do that with paint colors, is that when you look at paint colors, you squint your eye to look to see what prevails. And when you look at stone, depending on we expect to use a lighter stone that would actually look like plaster. If you squint your eyes on most of the stone, you can flush it out and it'll actually look like a plaster addition. We can paint the house dark.
Yeah, just for the record, I'm looking at page 346 of the standards and guidelines is what's acceptable and not acceptable in terms of additions. And hyphens are encouraged, but there is a way of building beyond the corners, as I see it, to also comply with the standards and guidelines.
Anna, could you expand on comment C, the south porch facing Orange Street does not meet the setback requirements?
Correct. This right here, the south. Can you see that? Sorry, guys, the TV's not working for you. The south porch labeled there should be set back in the, let's see, go to the addition section. Decided. Yep, okay. 3.3 E, setback, no additions from the historic building, so the historic building retains visual emphasis. Required setback a minimum of 15 feet measured from the front street-facing wall, excluding porches. So this, can you see here, the front of the house here, the porch? Follow me, the corner of the house, you would start there, not the front porch. Any addition would need to be set back at least 15 feet from there.
From where?
So
From the front corner of the house, not, so can you see my cursor, Stan? From here back would need to be 15 feet.
Page 67.
And I think it's about 10, maybe.
But couldn't Stan argue that the building is set back 15 and the porches are 15 feet back from the original porch?
But it's part of the
If you're
addition,
not
so
going
it's
to count
just,
the porch on the front one, you shouldn't count the porch on the second one.
well, it doesn't say that, it says the addition, and the porch is part of the addition.
But
And
you
it's,
know,
it's
it is
because it's,
offset.
but it's, the issue is that it's blocking that view. I mean, right now we've got a full view of this side. And my concern is that we're impacting three sides of this structure. One completely gone, and then the view on the street side obviously is impacted, and then this view as well. Yeah, so it was a little bit different to have a front facing porch that's not related at all to the design of the main structure, so.
So we encourage additions to be compliant and matching the original building.
Complement and have at least one material that's the same and a color that's the same. Not, it doesn't have to match exactly, but it should at least relate to the house that it's attached to.
Well, let me ask you this, if you would actually, if I would actually offset let's go back to the floor plan. I think that one's more visible if you can zoom in. So we're disregarding the porch right now. On each side, you can see where the addition has been made, and there's an offset in the powder room. And if we would actually pull the storage back and create an offset in that restroom or in that powder room, and it'd be like a 2x2, pull the storage back, you would have and I know some of the examples in your guideline illustrate a band, like a glass band, and that would be appropriate, and that's the high visible side of the addition. The other side's not going to be visible from the street. If you build a fence per code, you're not going to see that side of the house. So my point there is, yeah, we can do the same thing. We can reduce the pantry or put the pantry somewhere else and create a similar 2-foot offset in inset. Here we are designing it in the plan, so it's 2x2 on each side, so it'd be an offset. Does that make sense? When you're working on a house, you're given a program, you try to make it, first of all, complementary to the house, and that's the objective. And complete the program. The lot is so small, they don't have a backyard. Most of it's in front, on the street side.
Stan, what's the distance between on the south porch, from the porch to the corner of the main structure? How many feet is that?
You're referring to, you put your mouse there. From here to there.
From that corner, from the corner of the porch to the corner of the house to right there.
Who's speaking? You are. It's okay. Well, the porch is 7 foot. Okay. So, I think Anna said it was 10 feet. And I didn't come prepared to give you a scale. Based on what, that's 7 feet.
Looks to be about 10.
Mike will appreciate this. I learned that from Luis Vivino. You remember when you used your finger to scale things? So the big objection is the wood shingle roof and the porch not complying with the revision of the ordinance. So if you zoom out again, you can see there's a lot of front yard. And there's no backyard. So you're telling the owner of the property to not do an addition that's smaller, not do stone. That look tells me that, what?
So my comments were yes on the stone, that it's a heavier material than the wood. The shingle roof on the new instead of the old, which of course it would have had a shingle roof. So if you want to go to a shingle roof, it would seem more appropriate on the actual historic structure, not the new. I mean, you can do the metal too, because it's also period appropriate, but if you were going to put shingle, I would put shingle on the old, not the new. And then, yeah, the requirement for the addition to be set back on the side, because the side is.
So you're not gonna see this side of the house, by the way. You won't see that side either from the street. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to point that out.
Because of a fence?
Are you gonna possibly have a fence there, Stan?
I can barely, this echoing is so bad in here.
Are you gonna possibly have a fence there, so you won't see that side of the house?
No, you won't see it.
You have a fence?
Plus, you're right there next to the neighbor. Now, it can't go that far because ordinance, the planning, I mean, the city ordinance doesn't allow you to have a high fence up to a certain face of the building. I think that's correct. Anna would know that.
Correct, and you can't, we don't allow front yard fences in the historic district either,
Front fences,
correct?
yeah, they won't put that. There's no reason because he won't be showing it off. It's the prominent, it's a corner property and it's been sitting there vacant. I think this is really gonna improve the character of the neighborhood, even though they're surrounded by a lot of multiple use housing in short term. But I think it's a good example.
More discussion? Comments? Motions?
Quick question.
I've seen other older houses that have had stone additions to. This one also, the profile of the roof line on that addition is different than the original house. It's a slighter slope to it, which I think distinguishes it as being something different. So I don't have a problem with the stone in this particular case, the way it's done, and then the roof profile of that addition separates it from the main house.
Stan, is your garage door, is it just a big white door like it's illustrated, or is there something going on there?
We didn't select anything. I mean, I think it'd be good to have some windows in it for light. And I think the owners would agree to that. I know it looks kind of blank, like an orthogonal look, but it'll probably have windows up. Is there a suggestion that it?
I was just trying to clarify.
Yeah, because it does look pretty. Yeah, that's what draws your attention more than anything is that big white garage.
I would agree with Mike. I think the stone complements the building next door also.
They're surrounded by.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The house behind it, is it 15 feet off the property line also, that fence?
Would you define which is the house? Is the house directly?
The stone fence?
Yeah, that's actually a relative. Then they'll have a gate to go through. So yeah, that's right on the property. In fact, it could be on part of their property, but just by a minimum amount. But it's built right on the property. So there's no setback on that side. When the storm came through in last January and February, everything was laying over and it really looked horrible. And so they cleaned it up and now you can see the house, which had been covered up by vegetation. The only thing that preserved the building was that we, as the board, recommended they put a roof on it because it's still deteriorated on the inside.
Any other discussion? Any more questions, Richard? David? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve application at 206 North Orange as submitted.
I'll second.
Well, motion made in second. Any more discussion? Questions? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same. It carries.
Thank you for serving. Thank you, Mike. Thank you all. Don't serve as long as I did, Mike.
It's nice to see something stand that's not 40 foot tall and overpowering the original building like this board's approved lately.
I'm sorry,
I
what?
said it's nice to see something that's not 40 foot tall like this board's approved lately.
Okay, application number 22-032, 510 East Creek.
Okay, 2203-032, 510 East Creek, R2 zoned, medium rated. Proposal is to construct 3 new short-term rental units. These will be identical dwelling units located at the vacant portion of the property. The building form, design, and characteristics and materials selection of the new dwelling units are a complement to the existing style of the residence. The materials include lap siding, which will be painted a light color blue and white, with a galvanized metal roof and painted timbers at the front porch. I've cited the sections of the design guidelines for lot coverage, service areas, and parking. Additions or new construction, including orientation, height, massing, and setbacks, and materials. Staff's findings and recommendation: the proposed new cottages are appropriate in design and materials. However, this is a residential neighborhood and the proposed site layout is more commercial and does not meet the design guidelines or standards for lot layout, including parking and orientation of the structures. At least one of the structures should be in line with the Creek Street setback of the 2 neighboring properties, and parking should be relocated to the rear of the property and appropriately screened. This recommendation is in keeping with the design standards cited above.
Okay. Tell us what you want to do.
Hey everybody, Matt Jarris, Sport and Country. This is a project that has been with a previous design firm. So this is we've inherited this project and we're trying to make the best of what we have in terms of design and the overall layout of the site. I understand the comments made by the committee, and I don't know, are there any other questions? In terms of location, there is it's a vacant area of the site. Currently, it's just a large gravel parking space, so that's where the new parking lot would be located, and 3 identical units flanking that parking lot. In terms of circulation throughout the site, I think that locating parking towards the back and screening that is obviously an important factor, but I believe that would start to impact the amount of impervious coverage, potentially more than what is shown now. And if there are any other questions, I'd love to take some.
Anybody on the board have any comments, questions? opinions?
Yeah, Mark, good to have you here. I guess the first question I have is just your response to what staff has pointed out as far as one of the structures being pulled forward to the setback line on Creek and trying to come up with a design that pushes parking to the rear of the structures versus having it street side.
Yeah, I mean, we unfortunately we're not privy to the DRC. I know that this went through DRC, so I'm not privy to those comments or the meeting minutes that were generated. Well, I believe that could, appropriate changes could be made to, I guess, to change circulation and change the orientation of parking in these three structures.
Anna, do you have a picture of the street, the surrounding houses, front, back, sides of the street?
Can y'all see the screen?
Yeah, can you flip it around?
There you go.
All right, so this is the lot in question. This is the main house. The blue is the existing house on the site. Exhibit number 3 is the new house built to the left, and exhibit number 4 is the house to the right.
So, single family on both sides?
Yes.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for coming. I would agree with city staff's recommendation that the layout, it really doesn't fit in the residential neighborhood. The context of it is just not right. I don't have a problem with the amount of square footage that you want to add or the materials. Just I have a real issue with a commercial site being right in between residential properties.
Like I said, I do understand the comments. We're the second design team just trying to make changes appropriate to what we've been given, and that's obviously something we need to address.
Any other questions?
Are you presenting this just as it was prepared by?
No, the site plan was prepared for us. I guess that has been through the DRC process, and that's the only item that's been reviewed by the city until this point, where we had provided the design for the three units.
From my point of view, I would like to see fewer rooftops, independent rooftops. Has any consideration been given to at least 2 of those being connected so that they present themselves as a larger structure rather than 2 separate smaller structures? I also think I would like to see it reversed where the 2 properties or the 2 structures are on the property or nearest the property line, which side that is. And then the single one would be closer to the original house. These are just my own. I wish that not everybody that wants to do a bed and breakfast comes in and wants to put however many little bitty tiny houses. Instead, try to make them appear to be larger houses, even though they may be independent rental units. Be one of the things that I would like to see, and it could be done.
Yeah, I think that's something to take into consideration. Like I said before, we're just trying to, I guess, meet the parameters that were given to us by the client. Like I said, I'm not sure what was discussed in their DRC meeting or previous comments that the city had provided them. but I do appreciate that feedback, and I do agree with that. I know the first version we received, there are shed roofs, which is clearly not appropriate for the site. So, yeah.
And Mark, would you rather us make a ruling, I mean, a motion and vote on this, or do you want to take this back and amend and resubmit? Or what's your? Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
Yeah. I mean, would you prefer the board to table it, or do you want us to proceed forward? I don't know that any of us up here are going to.
Right.
Be
Well, we
close
can,
to-
well, what is your process? I mean, we can table it. Can't do that.
You can bring it back to the next meeting, a continuation of this
Okay.
same application. If the board gives you some input or guidance, then you can come back to the next meeting and discuss it further. The board has 60 days to take action on this.
Okay.
Yeah, I make a motion we table. Application 22-032 for consideration at a future date.
Have a second for that motion?
Yes, motion, yes.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, with the same sign.
All right.
Motion's passed.
Well, thank you.
All right, application 22-031 at 204 South Edison.
This one's actually been pulled from the agenda. The applicant wanted to make some adjustments, so they'll be resubmitting for next month.
So it's not, we're not going to. Okay. Okay, application 22028, 409 East College.
Okay, this is an R1 zone property. It's a high-rated structure. And the applicant is requesting approval to remove a non-historic addition from the rear of the house and build a new rear addition. Number 2, add new windows on the west side gable for egress. Build new carport and storage building. Number 4, convert the outbuilding to an accessory dwelling unit. Number 5, replace existing metal roof with new standing seam metal roof and install half-round gutters. Item 6, re-rate and remove the non-historic wooden structures. Item 7, re-rate and relocate historic wood outbuilding to the rear of the property. I've cited the relevant sections of the design guidelines for roofs, additions, lot coverage, and accessory structures. Staff's findings and recommendation. The high-rated home has a non-historic rear addition. Staff recommends removal. The proposed rear addition, the materials, height, and detailing are appropriate, and the new addition will do a better job of showing off the corners of the historic structure. Item 2, while the addition of a window where there has not previously been one is not recommended, this addition of a window will allow the upstairs to be used for occupancy and will reduce the need for a large addition to the house. Staff recommends approval based on the design and limited visibility of the new window. And this recommendation is in keeping with the design standards for exceptions allowed by life safety code requirements. Item 3, the new carport and storage building is a minimal in size with 11 foot at the plate height and 15 at the ridge and is unornamented. Staff recommends approval based on design guidelines for new accessory units, structures. Item 4, the conversion of the non-historic outbuilding is in keeping with the existing style and will not impact the historic house. Staff recommends approval. Item 5, the original or at least historic age wooden shingles are visible under the current metal roof. If the original wood shingles can be salvaged, they should be. If the current metal roof is of historic age, it can be replaced in kind. If not, it would be more appropriate to be replaced with wood shingles. Item 6, the small wooden structures do not show on the 1924-1936 Sanborn maps. Staff recommends re-rating to allow for demolition. Item 7, the small wooden structure behind the main house does appear on the 1924 Sanborn map. And It has been added on to and is in need of rehabilitation. Staff recommends approval of the re-rating to medium to allow for relocation and rehabilitation on the property. And this is in keeping with the Historic Preservation Ordinance 23-62.
Okay. Tell us what you'd like to do.
Hello, my name is Marcus. This will be our 5th project in the historical district here in Fredericksburg. This project, we plan to feature a brand new HVAC system, all new electrical systems, spray foam insulation. We want to demo the addition they're currently on there that's not historic and build a new addition with code complying insets. That way you can see the historical structure. The new siding on the new addition is gonna be plaster. It's gonna have a different roof slope from the original structure. That way it differentiates itself from the original historic structure. We're proposing to change the garden shed to a medium rating. That way we can repair and restore and properly rehabilitate the structure, as well as move it somewhere else onto the property. There is a outbuilding in the back, that one right there, that's got a carport. We want to delete the carport, this screened-in catio, and then add a addition onto that with plaster siding as well, and proposing to do standing seam galvalume metal roof.
Any questions? On page 132, there's a well system that's in your picture. You're not going to be moving that, are you?
No, sir.
Anna, did this have the original windows in it, in the house?
Sorry, does it have the original what?
Windows?
They look to be original, yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to applaud you for the very thorough package, so I appreciate the detail and the effort that you put into it. So based on the design guidelines stated from staff and our design and guidelines and standards, sections 3.2.3, 3.3, 3.4.1, And 3.4.3, the application is in keeping with our guidelines, therefore make a motion to approve application 22-028 as presented.
Second. I'll second it. Bill second. Any more discussion? Any questions? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Application 22-034, 513 West Main.
I just want to acknowledge that Michael McCree recused himself from that item and has returned to the dais. All right. Application 22034 at 513 West Main Street. This is in the Central Business District, and the property has a medium rating. The applicant is requesting to re-rate the property to allow for demolition. I've cited the sections from the Historic Preservation Ordinance dealing with demolition, including a special time period for demolition of up to 120 days, and the requirements for demolition to be approved. Those are highlighted for you on page 151 and 152. Staff's recommendations and findings. The house at 513 West Main Street was given a medium rating when the demolition of 515 West Main Street was approved in 2018. At that time, the owner was directed to secure the building and prevent further demolition by neglect. Since that time, no rehabilitation has taken place. Doors and windows were ordered to be secured by the code enforcement officer. Demolition of a 100-plus-year-old building on Main Street should be the last resort. No replacement plans have been submitted, nor an attempt to relocate the structure on site. Staff agrees that the foundation of the structure is in need of significant reinforcement, and its current location requires substantial footers. The owner first applied for demolition in 2014 with the same result as in 2018. In 2020, the HPO and the Director of Development Services met with the owners to discuss plans for the site and neighboring properties. The owners were again encouraged to come up with a replacement plan so demolition could be considered. If demolition were approved, staff would recommend that the demolition permit not be released until replacement plans have been approved.
Jeff. Your turn. We just, we can get rid of it. It's fallen down. It's never been in good shape. We had a structural engineer go over it, and I sent the information to Anna that this thing was probably built in the 70s because of the dimensions of the lumber in it, the type of nails that he found in it, full of black mold in that. What's left of the basement, it's cracked and falling apart. And it's just not a safe building, and it's been, then Ray Ortegon, he had put the thing here for, that it was, he condemned it according to the paperwork that I received, and one of the ways to take care of it is demolition, so that's what we're asking for. Okay. Any questions?
I do want to note that you do have up to 120 days to consider this. So if you wanted to tour the property, I know some of us visited it years ago when you first brought it in. That's when we allowed the demolition of 515 that was connected to it. So that's an option you have.
This structure's worse than the other ones were.
Just make a few comments. I don't see a lot that's changed since 2018 from the original application that was granted, other than the house has just continued to deteriorate due to just neglect. You do know that we do have in our ordinances the ability to allow you to relocate that on the property.
I was told I couldn't. I was told the last time we could not. I asked to move it. You said no because of the basement. That we were not allowed to move it. I'm afraid as ate up as this by rot and termite, if we tried to move it, it's gonna collapse anyway.
Yeah, and staff did include for us a letter from the 2018 application, and so it's very clear in our current guidelines that you are able to relocate it on the premises if you can show how that fits into your plan. It's
Right now, we really don't have any plans for it because don't seem to be able to do anything with it. So we've actually got it. Somebody's interested in purchasing it, and they're not interested in building either. That's just a eyesore.
I did notice in your application that at least the verbal plan for it is to have retail space and possible accommodation as well. So I'm just see if you would consider relocating on the property to preserve the integrity of the building.
I'm just afraid it's going to fall down if we try to move it. It's going to collapse. There's already a good about, I would say, probably from the center to the outside walls where a bathroom and stuff had been added onto the porch. There's probably a good anywhere between a 6 and 10 inch drop slower. The floor is just falling off. And it's just, it would be unsafe to even try to consider moving. And if somebody wants to go and look at it, that's fine. We'll just get some waivers made up. You can sign those that if anything happens while anyone's in it, they can, it's not our fault.
Anna, did Historic Preservation Officer, did he look at the structures for not slab, the substructure?
The code enforcement officer, Ray's visited the site because when 515 was removed, it exposed the side of the building, and there were windows and doors that were left open, and so that's when Ray went out there. I'm not questioning the structural engineer as far as that site slopes significantly from Main Street towards San Antonio Street. So whatever's done to this property in the future, the site's going to need work. So I did meet with someone who was going to make an offer on the property. I don't know if she did that, but I told her exactly. I pretty much showed her this application and told her what my recommendation's been for 4 years and what it will be in the future. And she had some interest in potentially trying to at least try to relocate it. And because the main feature of this property is actually the live oak tree, a very significant large live oak tree. So the future development, I think, would be centered around that tree. And the structure could be a part of that. But I think we should at least look at that or have some idea what this property is going to look like compared to what it looks like today and what it's looked like for the last 5 years.
All right, have a motion.
I have a question, Jeff. On your application, you have removed building was condemned by the city. Did you get a condemnation notice from the city? Good.
Let's see.
just so there's clarity, you do, even as a medium rated property, you have the ability to relocate it on the premises. If the owner, yourself or the new owner could just show how it would be, where it would be sited. So there is that option without having to demolish the buildings. So
As much rots in it.
But obviously in
I can get anybody
2019,
to
you
do
knew
it.
it had, based on your engineer's report, you knew that the foundation was in disrepair and nothing's changed since then. It's only gotten worse since 2019. So.
There's really no foundation to speak of under. It's just a few cedar posts stuck under is all it is. There's no concrete foundations of any kind. The rock is like pictures show, there's big cracks in the rock basements that's there. And it's all full of black mold. So we just don't even go down in. We stay away from it.
So it does look like notice was delivered from code enforcement. It cites section 198, which that's not in our code of ordinances. I'm assuming that's maybe out of property maintenance code or building code or something like that. And this notice really, I can't see anywhere where it specifies what the exact, defects or whatever they're alleged to have existed. So I don't know what facts this was based on. But it does appear like some kind of notice was issued by code enforcement, essentially requesting the property owner to secure what the officer felt was an unsafe structure. And typically when I've seen this in the past, it's like it's an abandoned building or something that may have open windows or open doors. And it's an attempt to secure the property so that, children or vagrants or whatever don't enter the building for public safety purposes. But I can't comment, and I don't know what the basis was for him issuing that notice.
Well, the language of this notice is very similar to our demo by neglect language, right? It should be kept secure, enclosed, and just be made safe. And the remedies are very similar. The city could take action and put a lien on the property. So it's not in contradiction to our demo by neglect. It's in line with our demolition by neglect ordinance.
And we didn't secure it. We screwed all the windows shut, screwed all the doors shut. Put the doors and screwed everything shut so nobody can get in without some way of screwdriver. So
I'm sorry, it's medium rated. What is that? I can't have it in front of me. Okay. Does that allow for relocation on a separate property, or does it have to high? I know high rated needs to be on the same property. A high re-rated the medium, and a medium rated be moved off property.
It says the same track or a track in the same general location. So probably like an adjacent lot or something. I don't think you can move it across town. It needs to be in the same general area.
What section is that in? I mean, I've been looking for that one. I thought
It's in the actual ordinance. It's not in the design guidelines and standards.
That's right, because I was reviewing it a couple of days ago. I thought that you could move it on site or in the district on a medium rated. No.
Yeah, it allows for movement off of the lot that it's currently on. So you can move it within the lot, or you can move it to another lot, but it says like in the same location or same general location or something. So, I mean, it's up to the discretion of the board of how broad you want to interpret that. But like I said, I don't think you could maybe move it across town, but you could maybe move it to a lot in the same neighborhood or an adjacent lot.
It's page 151, item C, 3C.
See.
So the problem is our hands are kind of tied because we took action so long ago and he was ordered to repair it and stabilize it. Because now you cannot allow demolition because of demolition by neglect, right? Because that would defeat the entire purpose of our ordinance, that we just allow properties to be abandoned and let go. So the other option would be, you'd have to find an economic hardship. And there's several ways you have to prove an economic hardship. And I've cited that for you as well. 23-64 on page 152.
For the record, Anna, you're saying the building is falling apart because of demolition by neglect.
Yes.
So do we need to take that action?
I mean, ultimately, Mr. Berkner, we want something good to happen on this property, and that's why Brian and I met with you to talk about what's your plan. You've got multiple properties here. It's not just this single lot. We want to see something good, and maybe this structure is not the best thing for that property, but an empty lot's definitely not. So I know you're considering selling it. I've talked to someone who's considered buying it. I'm not going to get in the middle of a real estate transaction, but I do know there are people that are very interested in this lot if you're not.
Yeah, and as of right now, that building is actually causing the value to go down. It's reduced the value of the property right now. Any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve with staff recommendation that no demolition permit should not be released until we have overall site.
Do I hear a second? I'll second. No discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Aye.
I'm sorry, may I ask for clarification? Who seconded that motion?
Second, I did. All right. Thank you, Jeff. So what is, I don't understand what you just said. They turned down your application to demolition. Okay. All right. Anna?
Yep. So the other thing, the short-term rental ordinance did go to city council on March 7th, and it'll go back for a second reading, and we assume adoption on the 21st. And those changes that we had talked about to the historic district are included in that, as far as R2 requiring 5,000 square foot for multiple lot or multiple units, and that a facility, an R2 facility in the historic district, multiple structures like we just saw, would have to go through a conditional use permit. So you guys would see it, planning and zoning would see it, and city council would ultimately approve it. So that's headed to city council on the 21st. Version 6 is available for your viewing pleasure on the website. Another thing to talk about was Historic Preservation Month is in May. We've done some things before to recognize this. Of course, May is also when we're going to be the end of our 175th celebration. And so I'd like to do something for this board to be a part of that celebration and recognize, like 37 years of service to the city, that this board has existed for 37 years, and the work that multiple members have done over the years. So I'll follow up with that. I'll reach out to the 175th committee and see how we can fit in there. And then also we'll be recognizing, I don't have a date yet, Mike, but we will call you to city council for a formal recognition of your service. And we'll also obviously be looking for there's no replacement for Mike. Let me be very clear, but someone else to sit on the board and lend some service. But obviously your institutional knowledge and your memories are invaluable, and you'll be missed.
Before we adjourn, I would like to say that I've enjoyed Mike being, just the stories that go along with every piece of trim on every front porch. He's either lived in the house or lived next door to it. Yeah. So I think he's been an asset in more ways than one. The years I've been on the committee, I appreciate you quite a bit. All right, I have a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
You want to second it also?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. And now that we're adjourned, I do want to present, Charlie Shern isn't here to present this tonight. And I wanted to be after we adjourn, but I've got the board wants to present you with a bone handled custom made knife that has actually a really unique wood inlay, knowing that you're a man that likes distinct things and designs. But I don't know if you can pull it off in the law enforcement center. You might want to. I think we're still able to do that. It was either that or a pistol. And I thought I better. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Didn't expect this. Believe me, I have enjoyed 7 years, did you say? And I regret that I feel that I need to step down because I still feel the same way about the community. And, but there are things beyond my control that need me to step in.
Well, you'll still be on call.
I'm always, well, I've got to say something. Ann texts me all the time, and I always then return her call. This last time, she asked me if I could make this meeting, and I texted her back. It was a real long text. It was YES. But I was real proud of myself.